Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to YoungMartin'sReels. Today we're going to be working on this Pflueger Freespeed 1000 spinning reel. And just to let you know, I had told you 2 videos ago that this week was going to be spinning reel week, and then I turned right around and ran that Zebco Omega 1 in there on you. But that was because I had been working on that reel for about 5 days, and I finally got the parts for it and everything and wanted to finish it up. So that's why that one snuck in there. But today we're moving back to the spinning reels, and we're going to do this Pflueger Freespeed 1000. This is a made in the USA reel, and I'm guessing probably 1950s, maybe 1960s. I don't really think it's new enough to be in the 70s, but I guess that's possible. But looking at it, it looks like it's more of the 50s, 60s style. So we're going to be taking this apart. I'm going to start off by taking the spool off. All right. And then we're going to take off the handle by holding the rotor and turning the handle backwards. There we go. Let's see if this thing has anti-reverse. It does, and it is currently not engaged. It's in the override position. There we go. We're going to disengage it like we had it to begin with. There we go. Now we're going to take off this side cover. Okay, these 2 screws up here by the rotor are long screws, and I can guarantee you they're longer than the ones in the back. So the 2 long ones go in the front. Okay, 2 short ones in the back, 2 long ones in the front. All right, let's see if this will come off. It does. All right, there's our main gear assembly. Here's the anti-reverse. Wow, now that's pretty simplistic. That's nothing more than a spring-loaded push pin that rides on these. Now, here's a prime example of where an anti-reverse could have stood to have some lubricant. That metal has been rubbing on metal all these years, and it started to wear grooves into all of the teeth on this cog. I don't know if you can see it very well, but when we put this back together, we're going to make sure to put it together with some lubricant on there so that that's not wearing that out. Because it's going to get a lot of wear. If you've got it engaged, you're going to get a lot of action there. At every single time you turn the handle, you're going to have metal to metal. So this really should have been lubricated. All right. Let's move on to taking out the screw for the crosswind block. Now this is a plastic crosswind block. Wow, the screw's loose already. It was just sitting there. So it had worked its way loose over the years. There we go. Take that out. Once that's out, you should be able to pull the axle out. Let's put that screw into the axle shaft for safekeeping. All right, next comes out the crosswind block, and if you look, the screw goes up towards the rotor. Now we're ready to take the nut off for the rotor. Now we got the right size. Okay, with that off, we should be able to slip the rotor off. There we go. And now the pinion gear falls out of the other side. And everything here is ready to be cleaned up. I'm going to scrub the parts, clean them up, and when we come back, hopefully we will be ready to take everything away. This is kind of interesting. The drag stack is actually contained in the head of the adjuster knob. It's interesting. Okay, we'll get to that when we get there. So I'm going to pause. We're going to clean all this up. I'm going to tell you real quick before we get off of here. I'm just going to scrub and inspect all the teeth, make sure nothing's bent, everything's clean. And if you have to get all the grease out of these, use a screwdriver, a pick, and all, whatever you need to. Just don't bend the gear any. And we're going to scrub these up. Come back to you in just a few minutes with all the parts clean. All right, it appears that we had the parts reasonably clean, so we're going to go back to assembly now. We're going to start off with this pinion gear, and we're going to go ahead and grease it up. We're going to go ahead and put grease on the shaft here. That's going to ride inside this bushing, which I've cleaned out. It's going to slide in from the inside, just like that. Hold that in place, and we're ready to install the rotor. Like so. Put the nut back on. Tighten it down and make sure that it's functional. And it is. That grease is slowing it down just a little bit. It would spin a lot faster if we had used oil there, but I didn't know just how much wear might be in there, so I decided to use grease on that. Check the bail flip, and it flips beautifully. All right, put that in place. We're ready to reinstall our crosswind block. Now the crosswind block is going to ride on these two rails right here, so we're going to lubricate the rails. And like so, set it in place. Let's see here. Something don't seem quite right there, but let's make sure it doesn't go the other way. No, it goes this way. All right. It's going to sit right on top of those rails, so it just barely fits on there. All right, that means that it's time to go ahead and put the axle shaft in. Now, we've already slowed this reel down enough by putting the grease on the pinion. So we're going to use oil on the axle shaft instead of grease. Slide it in, spin it around a little bit to lubricate it, and go ahead and slide it into the crosswind block. And you're going to slide it down until you find it lined up hole to hole. Once you get the hole lined up, go ahead and install the screw. Don't over tighten that, because remember, that's a plastic block. Just snug it up. All right, now let's see if we've got it where it's going to ride. Yeah, see, it's going to ride nicely on those two rails. And I'm going to add a little more oil back here where this is going to ride. And some of that oil may have slipped off going through. All right. Now we're ready to grease up the main gear. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to put grease on the back side of this thing because I don't like the amount of wear that I'm seeing on that anti-reverse. I want that to still be functional with time. I'm going to oil the post where it goes up and down right here. And we'll flip it back and forth a few times. Let that oil work in. Because there's a spring down inside there. You can feel the spring as you're going. And you want that spring to be well lubricated. Now we're going to come over to this side. Put a drop of oil on there so that we're oiling it from both the top and the bottom. And with time, that oil is going to work its way through. All right. With that done, let's go ahead and oil our crankshaft. And slide it back into the case, like so. And reinstall the handle. One more time, try it again. There we go. Okay, we'll snug that back up later. And let's go ahead and check the anti-reverse on it. Okay, it's working beautifully. And let's disengage it. All right. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and grease the main gear. All right, once you feel like you've got that adequately greased, go ahead and grease the inside and the post, because that's going to be riding on this crosswound block. Let's adjust that up, because we've got to align that post with the crosswound block. Okay, slide the two together, and you can test it for just a second. If you've got it right, hold it in place. If you've got it right, your axle shaft will be moving up and down with the handle, which it is. Let's put our screws back in. Remember, the two long ones go up here. All right, that's beautiful up to that point. We're going to go ahead and put a drop of oil here. We're going to put some oil on the bail. At every point where the bail pivots, we're going to put a drop of oil so that it can travel freely. Inside, there's a pivot for the trip. We're going to oil the top and bottom side of that. And we're going to check that bail to see how well it spins. It works beautifully. All right. That's going to bring us down to the spool and the drag mechanism. All right, I got the spool cleaned up. Now we're going to work on this adjuster knob, and it's going to have a spring wire up in the corner, and we're going to get in behind that and lift it out like so. Be careful, because it could shoot easily. All right, then we're going to lift out the drag washer. Okay, there's one. All right, apparently that's not a washer, it's a rubber insert. It's distorted quite a ways and did not come out. So we're gonna leave that in there. I don't wanna damage it trying to take it out. So we're gonna leave that in. Apparently it's only that assembly riding on these two, which means we're gonna come back and add ever so slightly a little bit of drag washer grease in there on that rubber insert. And Insert the copper washer back in. Insert the keyed washer back in. And reinstall the snap ring. All right, with that done, we're going to put a small amount of grease on the clicker cob for the drag. Small amount of grease here because this is part of the drag washer system. Now that gave us grease for this clicker, so we won't have that metal to metal wear that we saw elsewhere. And I have to line that keyway up and then tighten the knob back down. Drag's working, so let's put it in the correct way. See how well it works. Okay. Tighten it up. Very tight. Not a very sensitive or responsive drag on this thing, but it's not complicated. So that would explain a lot of it. It's a very simple system. And overall, it's not a bad reel considering its age. It's well made, it's solid. It's simplistic in its drag design. I'm not overly fond of the drag design, but the rest of it all seems to work very nicely. It is a bit of a slow reel. It's about a 3-to-1 ratio. And so it's certainly not a fast retrieve reel by any means. But there you have it, the Pflueger Freespeed 1000. Serviced and ready to go back to work. Oh, let me double check. Yes, anti-reverse is working like it's supposed to. Okay. All right. If you like what you saw here today, please hit the like button. If you dislike what you saw today, go ahead, hit the dislike button. Tell me what it is that I need to improve on. If you would like to see further videos like this, by all means, subscribe. If you think you know somebody out there who would appreciate these videos, send them a link. Let them know where I'm at. For now, that's Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels, signing out.